DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
You're tuned in to DJNTV Live with your host, Brian S. Red.
It's under you, and then you go down dark theme.
Well, it could be there. It could be over here. So last night, we use Zoom like all the time for our shows, and you would think we know what the heck we're doing. So last night we were in the live hangout afterwards, and Robin, she's like all of a sudden flipping her backgrounds, this weird thing in the background and such, and it's like, how in the world is she doing that? And of course, Howie and the crew are watching and laughing, and yes, John doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, Robin didn't. My video's behind all the time. Da-da-da. Okay, well, good evening and welcome.
We're here?
We are here.
Smoking a cigarette. Sorry about that,
not a big
kids.
deal. No.
I think I'm here on this screen. There we go.
You're so
We're
really,
getting it.
You're
We're
dark.
getting it.
You're really dark. I mean, it's really feeling like the dungeon
I'll put
tonight.
the cigarette out so I don't upset anybody.
Let's see. So good evening and welcome to everyone. We are broadcasting both Facebook and YouTube tonight. We'll probably be following the YouTube chat just a little bit more because that's easier for us to be able to hit and such as things are going on. But if you would like to join us, just go out to youtube.com/discjockeynews and that will take you to the live player, which is always awesome. And you can follow us there, or you can be on Facebook. That's completely fine. I find when I go into the house and I'm kind of following shows, I use Facebook because it just seems to stream better on my cell phone. I don't know why. It just does.
So about this darkness.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. I'm trying something new, and I will adjust the lights, and then I've got a strobe up here. I don't know if any of you have discovered this yet, but I found something that I really like, and I just share this with you really quick, called YouTube Dark. And what it does is it turns your YouTube background dark instead of light.
Okay, where did you find that setting? Oh, there it is.
You go like up where your icon is, or your emoji, or whatever your picture is, in the upper left right-hand corner of YouTube. It's a drop-down menu, and you might see something called Dark Theme.
Yep. Okay.
Below my channel and all that. I have it on right now. If I were to turn it off, hey, I brighten up. Look at that.
Yeah, and so here it is. I just shut off all my front light, and now I am regular. And that would be the changing it. Ironically, it doesn't change this window.
Well, it's not going to change the Disc Jockey News window, but
no,
I watch the comment section on YouTube and I adjust things accordingly. But I like the dark theme. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've not played it.
It's easier on my eyes. But what I will do to compensate for the darkness is go ahead and bring the house lights up a bit.
Sure.
Because this is brand new to me. And hopefully that's just a little better for people.
Yeah, it gives a little bit of a glow there. Nice.
I don't have anything on the top here, but no, it's a lot easier on my eyes to look at something like this as opposed to staring at this bright light coming at me all the time on a 32-inch monitor.
For sure.
So
Oh my goodness. So back when I had the eye surgeries, I had turned the brightness down on the monitor. I didn't realize how low it was. It was like at the second to the lowest. Here, this is my monitor.
right,
That's not even all the way. It's like, oh
just
my God.
blinding.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you got suntan tonight. Yes, I did. So tonight, Brian, I was actually thinking about this as a Yellow Pages phone book came in over the weekend.
Wow.
I completely, it's like this yesterday thing coming in, and I just was kind of taking me back a little bit. And then as Michael was with today, as we were running around doing some shoe shopping for his younger brothers, and we got into the topic of talking about how it was when we first started, and specifically he was talking about CDs, and he's asking, it's like, he wanted to get a few songs. Like, dude, I probably have all of those classic songs on CD somewhere. He goes, oh, CD singles, and we got into talking about 45s and such. In the area in which he was questioning, and I mentioned 12-inch singles, and that it wasn't something that I really got into, but you've had a lot more experience with the 12-inch cuts. For those who have no idea what we're talking about, kind of give us an overview of what. I mean, I think I have one, and that's one in all my career that I've had on a vinyl.
Right.
What were those cuts?
Well, the 12-inch single is, well, they started out doing like a disco single back in the 70s. It's basically a 12-inch record, just like an LP, but it only has one song on it. And a lot of times, these 12-inch singles run at 45 RPM, so you get a really good sound quality. The grooves are wider and deeper, and it just the record has more room to breathe, and the faster speed you can play it at, the better the sound quality is going to be. Some 12-inch singles are still a 33. Oftentimes they have extended mixes on them, additional mixes, alternative mixes, B-sides. It's just an interesting thing that I'm into. I prefer the singles to the LPs. They tend to sound better. And when it comes to anybody who is actually doing turntablism with any kind of scratching or mixing or whatever, it's a lot easier to do it with a 12-inch single because of those wider grooves, those wider groove patterns, than opposed to an LP with a real narrow grooves. You don't get nearly as, I guess, dynamic of a sound as you might out of an LP. As you would of an LP, the 12-inch does a much better job. The single,
sure, yeah. Jimmy just mentioned
I enjoy.
The fatter groove on the 12-inch single. Yeah, I think I picked up a Prince 12-inch single.
Yeah, he had some cool ones.
Yeah, and he had
a lot of the,
but I haven't.
Some of the B-sides were cool on the Prince singles. The old stuff, the B-sides were sought after, and the B-sides often got the actual airplay or the club play. Let's Go Crazy was a very popular 12-inch single.
Mm-hmm.
Long version, which was the one that was in the movie Purple Rain. But the B-side was Erotic City. It didn't come out on an album. You could only get it on the 12-inch single. And that really became the club hit.
Oh, for sure. That it did.
That's how it worked.
Yeah, we couldn't play Erotic City at weddings. Couldn't touch it, obviously. But
I played it all the time.
Oh my goodness! Well, we weren't touching it because we were still busy playing. Jesus Loves Me, Yes I Know as our first dance song.
We probably shouldn't have been playing it, but we were playing it.
But it's such a great.
It was just so in the way. We didn't know what he was saying, and who cares?
We're not the police. Shut up and just
play our
it.
audio system wasn't that great, so it didn't really matter. But no, I was oblivious to it. I had no idea that it was bad or anything. I mean, I knew that Let's Pretend We're Married had some foul stuff in it because it was just in your face. But I guess until I heard an edited version of Erotic City, it never really occurred to me that there was anything in there that was bad.
Oh. But we continued on and from talking about singles to how when we first started, that the music that we had, wherever we found some of these really eclectic tracks, really defined us as a DJ, and our success or failure in a given demographic or a given area was defined more on the music that we had over even style and skill, especially in our vicinity. Because I had music that no one else had, and that meant that I
Right.
was in some ways a good DJ. And Michael's looking at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. He's like, really? Everyone didn't have this access to the same stuff?
No, there was a time, and I never had a guy like this, but a lot of DJs had a guy at a record store who would take the hot track and put it behind the counter and only hand it out to their friends. So only their friends could have the hot track.
Wow.
That was a real thing. And I always kind of didn't like that. I thought that was kind of cheating. I mean, if you suck, you suck, who cares what music you have? But it did make a difference. All things being the same, which they never are with DJs, but all things being the same, the one with the cool track, usually does the best. But then it also challenged those of us who didn't necessarily have the latest, hottest track, and we had to really deliver with the tools that we had, which made us better DJs. So on the flip side, that was a cool thing. There were a lot of DJs who used to black out the center of the record where it actually said who the artist was or whatever. They take a Sharpie and black it out, or they put a white piece of paper on that or something, just so nobody could even look and see what the song was. They were that secretive about some of these tracks and some of these mixes. They didn't want anybody to know what they were. So,
and that was so foreign to me when I saw the first. I think it was MJ was doing a thing one of the nights, and he was talking about that. And he actually showed some pictures of some of the those albums that were white out like that. And it's like, we were whatever. It's like, really, people did that? And then I think you and I talked about it probably about a month later in one of our shows, and it's like, wow, that one was beyond me, because it just you didn't buy this particular album, you don't have it, or you didn't have this, you don't have this CD. You can go to Best Buy and buy them all those CDs if you want, but that DJ, he has them, so we're going to hire him, and that was part of it.
There were some people who would, black out the labels or white out the labels, and there are other people who would put the wrong labels on there just to screw people up. So they go and buy something stupid.
Yeah,
but those are the old days, I guess. But no, man, I mean, really, as far as the DJ goes, and I'll admit, as a mobile DJ, I never really had the hot tracks that a lot of other DJs had. I didn't have the access to everything like some of the higher end mobile DJs had, because we were like a mobile DJ clearinghouse. We were the bargain basement, $2.95 4-hour wedding DJs. Mm-hmm. That's what we were back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then sometimes it was $3.95 if you rented a tuxedo for the event or something. It was cheap stuff. But we really had to work with the tools that we had. And it's kind of like being an athlete or a runner and running with ankle weights. You run as fast as you can with those ankle weights. Our ankle weights were our limited music library. But then when you took the weights off and you had a couple tracks, wow, you could really sprint. Mm-hmm. So we learned to work with what we had, and we learned to just program. Just put songs in an order that made sense. Yeah. Something I call the Jedi mind trick, where if someone says, "Hey, man, do you have any, some deep house track or something?" It's like, "No, but I've got Inner City's Big Fun or Mars Pump Up the Volume. Is that cool?" "Oh, yeah, that's great." And you play that, and they're happy. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, some pros and cons from that, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, old days, old stuff, old guy stuff.
Yeah. And then we transitioned into talking about how when we first started back in the 80s. How we would market. We would, flyers. We would put flyers around. We're going to be playing in Marcia's bar Saturday night. And how would we advertise that? Well, obviously today's different world. But we would make these. Actually, we weren't doing 11 by 17. We were doing the 8.5 by 14, and we could run it through the printer a little bit and type a few things on there. But the flyer basically, had our name on it, and we would be playing typical. But it was listing the different songs or the different artists that we had in our libraries at that time. So I remember one of them, we were playing in a bar that was an older bar. So Tommy James was listed, Roy Orbison was listed, Elvis Presley was listed, anything from that 50s and 60s era, because that was kind of what it was. And that was a pull. People would see that and they're like, "Wow, yeah, I like those artists. We're going to go out and listen to this DJ because they have that music." And across the bottom in big bold letters, on complete digital sound, because we had those songs on CD, so we could
Right. That was a big deal.
play
That
that.
was a really big deal.
Oh my goodness gracious! And if, yeah, people would come in and they were listening to our big PV sound system at the time with the 18-inch subs and then the 15-inch three-way tops. And at the time we thought they sounded absolutely fabulous, and
Right.
people came to hear your collection of music, not
You're
the unique collection that you had accumulated up to that point in time, which isn't even close to that way today.
your discothèque,
Yeah.
which is French for a music library.
By the music library, okay.
Bibliothèque is like a book library. Discothèque is your disc library. Sorry.
Yeah,
Showing
our language lesson for tonight. I was wondering what you were saying, but yeah, it just as you look at it, and it really that wasn't that long ago. I mean, yes, it was 30 years ago, but it doesn't seem that long ago in the history of the world. We'll call it, for lack of a better way to describe it. But yet, how things have changed so much that my 15-year-old thinks I'm talking about the 1800s. Was there electricity at that time?
Yeah.
And and it's not that he's trying to be funny or smart about it. It
Right.
just seems just so different than anything he's.
I think it's interesting, though. I think our limitations really, like I said, pushed us to be better. And today, a lot of things seem to be just handed to people. And if they're not handed to people, they get a little lost. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Okay, I got this friend who is has been a pretty famous club DJ over the past several decades.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, as many club DJs do, they get a little older and they say to themselves, you know what? I think I'm going to try this mobile thing. I'm going to do this wedding thing. And I'm going to learn about it. And I'm going to buy this equipment and make the investment and really just bring it. And
Sure.
they absolutely can, especially when they're older and they're a little less ego behind what they're doing. They can absolutely do this, and they can make a good living off of it. As we know, make a good living off of this if you do it right. So this friend of mine, he comes from the club world, and he gets so frustrated when he needs to go out and put together a mobile system, because there's not a special rack to put this, and this in, and there's not a special tool that does this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? You're just spoiled from the club world, because club DJs were handed everything. Somebody came in and programmed your light show. Your mixing board was made with you in mind. Your decks were made with you in mind. And mobile DJs have always been a DIY culture.
Oh, for sure.
Always. There are a lot of, we talked about this last week, there are a lot of products out there that were absolutely made for us. Sure. And they are now, and they're hot and people buy them. But deja vu here, we talked about this last week. But there's a lot of stuff that just isn't made for us, and we have to adapt it into what we do. And it was just funny that I had this experience with this guy just this week, and I just called him out on it. And I'm like, look, you got to be creative.
Oh yeah.
And you've got to figure out how you're going to incorporate these things together. You got to consider your weight and your size, and not your personal weight and size, but
Sure.
the weight and size of the rack that you're going to build. And you've got to think about the logistics of how you're going to use it, and where you might want to fragment this a little bit and bring it over here to a ceremony system. These are all things you got to think about. He's like, well, I don't know how to do that. Like, huh?
I don't want to do that.
I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to get aggressive, or you're going to have to hire a guy to figure it out for you, because this is what it is. What you want isn't something that you can buy off the shelf. What you want is custom. Well, somebody should make one. Why? Because you want it? I mean, everybody's got a different idea of what they want. Back in the old days, John, I mean, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have this idea sharing.
Right.
Like we now. At best, we had Mobile Bee magazine and resources like that. But man, I mean, as individuals, we were pretty creative. We came up with some stuff that I came up with some stuff that nobody had thought of.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was on this gig one time, this guy, and he came from a band background, and I was setting up this mobile system from this company. And I remember I had a light tree, like just a single light. No, a dual light trees, one on each side. That's how we did it. All kind of matched up.
Yep.
And I went to kind of wind the cables around the pole to clean it up like we always did. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just neatening up these cables." It's like, no, get out of the way. And he showed me that method where you grab the whole ream of cables, wrap around the pole one time, kind of hook them onto the knob of the tripod, and that's it. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the night, you grab them, you let them go. They twirl around one time, and they're all loose again. A lot neater, a lot cleaner. No duct tape, no Velcro, no zip ties, no winding of cables. I was like, wow, this is cool. And I went back to the office that night and said, "You guys got to see this. This is what this guy showed me. You got to check this out." Then everybody at the company started doing it. And that was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
That was a thing, We have things like that multiple times a day with our social media that we have. How cool is that?
Oh, for sure.
If you're not showing it, somebody else is. Maybe it's a very little known DJ, or maybe not somebody who's got a large social media presence. Let's just put it that way. They don't have a large social media presence, but they put this little tip out there, and it just changes the way everybody thinks. This happens all the time. It's almost too much information, But to me, I just think that's good stuff. But I want to emphasize that we are a DIY culture.
Oh, very much so.
There are companies out there who have made stuff for us. Some works for some people, some doesn't work for others. But yeah, we are not off the shelf people. We never will be. I don't think we will ever be anything other than DIY. But it keeps us creative, keeps us thinking, and it's all really today. A lot of it is about applied science, where it's all out there. All the tech is out there. We just have to figure out our best way of implementing it and integrating it into what we do. And once in a while, a company comes along and does this really neatly wrapped package that we fall in love with, and we buy and everybody has one.
Mm-hmm.
It happens with controllers or cases or lighting systems or tables or whatever. Things become the standard. And I think that's neat.
So you mentioned, of course, when we didn't have the Mobile Beat resource at one time. If I'm not mistaken, I think Mobile Beat started in about, I was thinking 1996 is what it looks like. And I'm just going back in the Wayback Machine and the website thing.
Yeah.
I think they started in about 1993, 4, 5, or 6. So, okay. And I probably didn't know about them until like 97, 98. It was a few years later. Where did you get? I mean, was it just networking with other DJs, or
primarily? Yeah. I mean, the multi-app I worked for, we had, I think, at one time, close to 30 different mobile systems that went on every weekend. So you had the opportunity to work with different DJs, and who knows where they came from. One guy that I worked with, just for instance, they called him Zeno. And he was the original guitar player of the band Cheap Trick.
Okay.
And quit Cheap Trick right before they hit it big. So this guy, he was not too happy about that. But he would go out and DJ with us once in a while, and he brought this thing with him from the band experience. And a lot of guys brought that thing with them from the band experience, that technique or that skill or that knowledge. A lot of ex-band frontmen were DJs when I first started in the late 80s, and they were the frontmen. They were the lead singers or whatever, and they decided they didn't want to do it the band thing anymore. They could make the same amount of money doing the DJ thing. They could be the frontman. They could have fun. And those guys had learned from countless different band members and production people over the years, and then they would bring that knowledge into our universe.
Yeah.
and then we would share that with our friends, and there would be a different guy every week for a while. And beyond that, you would work for different mobile companies. And I remember going from the first mobile company I worked for to the second mobile company I worked for. Because the first mobile company, it was all about just budget. Everything was budget and cheap. Well, they had to be at 295 weddings.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Everything had to be, you know, the Radio Shack turntables and the 45s and the homemade this and homemade that. And then I went to work for another company where they had good stuff. They were all CD, and they had brand new vans, and they had graphics on the side of these vans.
Nice.
And the sound system was greatly improved. The equipment in general was greatly improved. The lighting system I felt was lacking with this particular company I was working for. Well, that sucks. You know, I mean, although you have this great sound system and everything, you know, the custom stuff was done very well. It didn't look custom. It was very fit and finish. There was custom stuff involved, but it was done by craftsmen. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, you know, junky looking. It looked like an anvil case or whatever.
Yeah.
It didn't look like plywood painted with a paintbrush black, which is what most of our stuff looked like.
Yeah, that's what it was.
This was very fit and finish. But the lights were lacking. Then I went to work for another company, and lights were better. Sound system wasn't as nice. You see all this stuff, and of course you work the clubs, and you work with different DJs, and you know DJs who set out on their own and they build their own systems. And then you get to the point where you build your own. And I remember thinking about all the things that I liked about every company that I worked for. You know, what did I like about what they did? And what did I not like about what they did? And incorporate that all into my own thing. And a lot of it was me just kind of coming up with my own ideas.
Yeah.
You can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? I'm going to do it. And look how this works. My first system was kind of a micro system. It wasn't really a micro system, but compared to what other people were running at the time, it absolutely was.
Oh, yeah.
My racks that I carried around, most people had like a single amp rack. And they had this boat anchor amp in there, and they had usually cables in there because there was space for them. And this thing weighed 130 pounds, and you had to have somebody help you carry it. I didn't do that. I had I think a 4U rack. I put a 2U amp in it, and then I had a separate rack that had a mixing board mounted flush in the front. And then 2 consumer line Sony CD players velcroed inside of the case below it. That was all hardwired.
Yep.
All I really had to do was run a main from that particular rack, left and right into the amp, you know, left and right speakers out to the speakers, and my audio system was done. It was just simple. You could get it in a 78 Cutlass because that's what I built it to do. The speakers were a little big and dated, but they worked. And the lighting, I got creative with that. I did something that, you know, I didn't do the cheesy light show that, or at the time, I look back and it's absolutely awful. But I didn't do what I conceived as the cheesy light show for the first company I worked for. But I didn't do the stupid idiot box looking thing that the second company I worked for. I did something that was my own and created my own thing, and it evolved. And yeah, I don't know. It's always about DIY. It's always about just kind of taking ideas, and you're going to see a lot of things out there today, even if you bother to look.
Yeah,
you're going to see a lot of things out there that you like, and you're going to see a lot of things that you don't like. On social media, I will say this: people are hesitant to put things up.
Oh, for sure.
Because
now they are. Yeah,
they'll get this massive wave of critique in that they didn't particularly ask for. I think it's probably more, is the word, ingenuous to go out with another DJ and see exactly what they're doing, how they're setting it up, and how it's all working out for them. And then take things from that you like and use them, and things that you don't like, just don't worry about those things. Don't do those things. And then you'll also see things that maybe, they're almost there, but they need some improvement. Maybe you're the guy to give them that improvement to make them cool.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sometimes it works that way, that you can make that suggestion, what have you, and help them grow.
Or maybe you don't even suggest it to them. Maybe you just put it in here and then go home and figure it out for yourself. It's inspiration at any rate. It may not be, you may see something that's not a complete
train wreck
product as it sits,
train wreck,
or complete to your standards, but you can complete it yourself, and it can be, you can grow on it. People can I guess cultivate it from there and make it better and better and better. And I don't know, man. It's DIY. If you're not a DIY kind of person, I think you're in the wrong business.
Well, especially early on when we were doing a lot of that, because the things just didn't exist.
I think it's still the case. The guy I went out with this weekend is just, I mean, I was on a 4-person crew for a wedding. And this was not a 500-person wedding. This was ceremony, reception, and there was also a remote speaker in a bar. This isn't hard stuff. This is stuff where I feel like if you're organized enough and you're consolidated enough, you can do it yourself. You don't need to hire 3 other guys to come along with you to do this. But the stuff was so incredibly fragmented. Yeah, he needed the 4-guy crew because nothing was integrated in together. No 2 components seemed to share a space where they were already hooked up.
Sure.
If that makes any sense to you.
Oh, yeah. I've had that system when...
It's like showing up to rent a car. You're like, I want to rent a car today. And they say, okay. And they open the garage and there's just all these parts laying on the floor. It's like, if you put all these parts together, you got a car, buddy.
Well, there were nights that we went out and for some reason, something didn't come in. And I remember specifically doing a high school dance where I had my PV 920, 9020, 9072 mixer, and it out of the box set it up. Then CD player, Sony CD player 1, cables, Sony CD player 2, cables, Sony CD cables. And then, everything was basically in a box and it was all hooked up, and, didn't think much of it at that point in time. It was like everyone was at that point or worse at that particular time. And in the 2 shows that I had that had the coffins and such all built in and looked really cool. Otherwise it's like, yeah, it wasn't a big deal. Now today it would be like, oh my God, I can't go out like that. It's terrible.
Well,
what will Jimmy say? But yeah, thinking back to the early influences before the mobile beat and such, we had many years of DJing, and to find out anything, we would have to go to our local gear dealers. We had
some knowledgeable people in there at one time.
They're all coming from basically a live music realm.
Yeah,
there were some DJs working in the area, but the DJ industry, when we started in our first our contact with them would have been 1986, where we went in there and we talked to them. They didn't know a whole lot more about the DJ than we did, but they did know that these speakers can make noise. And here's a mixer from PV that seems to be pretty popular, so we have that. And here's a couple of floodlights that will twinkle and do their thing. And they had that little capacitor type thing that was you screwed in, and it had that little blue chip that was in there that once it got warm, it would shut it off and then cool and then back, and it would just basically flip that on. The sound guys were basically our start, and yet there was this ongoing animosity, especially as we became more successful and we were coming and buying the second sound system. Some of the sound guys at the local audio shop were like, God, DJs, all you grr. As they're writing up the receipt as I'm buying another, $1,000 worth of gear. It was always the darndest thing, and Lori and I've talked about that. It's like, why do we keep doing business with these people? All they do is just every time you go in there, they're grumbly and they're mad and they're like, They want to see you dead. You're taking all of our shows. It's like, dude, I'm not taking your shows. You think you really are ever going to go play in a bar for $150? If you do, you're an idiot. So let me be the idiot.
Do you remember when I took you drive through the city?
Yep.
Do you remember that? Do you remember me taking you through that kind of Brooklyn-ish area called the Third Ward?
Yeah. I remember you talking about.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It looks like every old city.
Yeah, exactly.
Like right from like the turn of the century, with these old beautiful warehouses with these, ornate cornices on the top, and It's got piano bars in it, and restaurants, and boutique hotels, and it's just gorgeous. But there was a time not too long ago, like we're going back 15 years ago, when it was just a hole. It was an old place from the turn of the century, but nobody cared about it anymore.
Sure.
And it was just where you see guys, sleeping on the sidewalk with a bottle with a paper bag wrapped around it, kind of thing, not a nice neighborhood. Back in, I guess it would have been right around the late 80s, early 90s, there was a warehouse space there called Vizio Incorporated. And what Vizio did was lighting and sound for nightclubs. So, and we had a pretty solid club culture here in the city and even in the outskirts. Milwaukee has always been, and you saw it for yourself, there's a bar on every corner.
Mm-hmm.
Every corner there's a bar.
Yep, for sure.
It's a party city. So there's live music, there's live DJ, there's big club stuff. Vizio were the installers, and they were the warehouse, and they had stuff in there they'd pulled out of clubs that had recently gone under, and they had brand new stuff that they had in there from the new club that's going up, and they would sell the old stuff and whatever. That was the place to go.
Oh yeah.
And they were cool about it in there. They were really cool and patient about it in there. It's like, okay, so what we want to do is build something that's like the club, but it's going to fit in your pickup truck. Let's see what we can do. Those guys were so resourceful. There's one guy, his name was Doug. I don't remember Doug's last name, but Doug was just such a resource for anything like this. He was just amazing. But other than that, I mean, you went into music stores.
Yeah.
And when you go into music stores, that's where you bought your PA speakers. But you bought your mixing board at Vizio or Radio Shack, one or the other.
Oh, yeah.
And Radio Shack was a really big spot to go and get these specialty cables. Well, I want to go 1/4 inch to RCA. Why the hell would you want to do that? Well, I just do, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Radio Shack were the only people who would just say, oh, yeah, we got those over here.
Yeah, they're right over there. And what else do you?
Yeah, we had 50 of them.
Oh, you need a wireless microphone?
That'll be $75.
We've got this FM microphone that was really hot and it's working really well. All you have to do is put batteries in, and you can go like 25 feet. Imagine 25 feet of wireless connectivity, FM wire, and it's like,
Wow,
oh
that's
my
amazing.
god, I need that.
Amazing. Yeah. We use Shure SM58 microphones, that stuff that we got at the music store. The PA speakers were music store things. The lighting, a lot of it was homemade at the time. A lot of it. You might have a police speaker or something that was really made to be an install piece.
Yep. Or
Excuse me.
somebody was just talking.
A mirror ball.
They
Where
took
back then for some reason.
the lights from a police car.
I always thought that would be cool.
And
for some reason, I thought that would be neat to have a light show that looked like that you had literally ripped off the top of a police car and just stuck it above your head. I thought that would just be the most punk rock cool light show a person could have.
We looked at that. Our very first light show, of course, was homemade boxes. So we had this 4 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot box with cutout floodlights mounted in there with bracket the base like you would use for a standard garage light, and we had floods in there and then plastic gel or the gels in front. Those were the boxes, and then on top of those we had 12-volt lights we picked up from J.C. Whitney, and then we had a transformer, 12-volt transformer with switches, and did that. So I thought, police, these beacons are awesome. Could we get the bar when they first had the cool little thin bars on the police car? So it's like, we got to get one of those. So we started looking at that, and it's like, do you know how many watts those suckers take? They are incredible. They're like pulling 150 watts of power. And it's like, I can't buy a transformer at that time for, I think our first transformer was $300 and some, which is like, why would we have spent that much on that? But anyway, they were so expensive, and there was absolutely no way that I could get a transformer big enough to run that police light bar. And now those light shows are either thrown away or they're sitting out in the back shed, and the kids are like, oh, what's this?
What's that? Oh, let me tell you about this lights.
Yeah,
kids.
this is the way we used to do it.
Yeah. There's people in the room talking about, yeah, musician's friend and pro soundstage lighting. Yeah, now.
Now,
Whereas back then, this was not a thing. Full Compass was a thing, which is a local, kind of like it's a mail order, Full Compass.
Mm-hmm.
But they used to do all the really high-end recording stuff. Like that's where you went to buy your Trident mixing board if you were in a band, like at a studio or, that kind of thing. Now I'm not, I think they just do what everybody else does.
But back when we first started, there was no way for us to find out about them. Was the biggest.
Right.
I mean, they were
They'd
actually
ask around.
Yeah, you'd have to ask around and get a referral or something, and you could dial, what was it, 800-555-1212, and you could get 800 assistants and ask, if you knew the name of the company and get their 800 number, but there was no internet to go find out how these things were, and unless you were somehow on a mailing list, you weren't getting information from these companies. So it was like I had to go find something local and make that, had to start there to be able to do it.
I remember this guy that I trained as a DJ, and he didn't stay at the company long. He went out and bought his own stuff and did his own thing. And I stayed at the company longer than I probably should have. Then I went to another company and stayed there. And then when I finally decided to strike out on my own, somebody said, well, you got to call him because he's a pretty busy guy. Call him and pick his brain and just see what he's got. Maybe he can help you.
Sure.
So I called the guy and I'm like, hey, it's me. Oh, hey, man, what's going on? And I said, look, I'm thinking about taking the plunge and building my own system. Oh, it's about time. It's about time. What do you need help with? And he was so helpful. He was just so incredibly helpful. And that's the karma thing. What goes around comes around, man. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do to kind of fill these gaps in my music library and my currents. Oh, here, take this number down, call this number, and tell them that you want a trial of their service, and they'll give you a trial of their service. And it was Top Hits USA at the time.
Okay, sure.
You get a free month. Like, really? I get free music? Yeah, here, you get free music from these guys too. And he gives you the number, and he tells you to go buy this and tells you to go buy that. And, that was how you did it.
Yeah.
You had to have a friend or somebody who was willing to talk to you and share some trade secrets with you.
Yeah, otherwise you had absolutely no idea of how to.
Yeah.
And that's the part that just frustrates me today is that you see people who are out there and you see how inept they are at putting things together, doing things. And it's like, you have got more resources and more opportunities to learn how to be even adequate today than we had.
Yeah, well, I'm going to stick up for those people for a second because I know that some people are just intimidated by that. I remember my ex-father-in-law, for instance. They had built a house and they never really did any maintenance to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some shrubs out front and they had like grown taller than the house. And I asked my ex-mother-in-law at the time, I said, what do you want for Christmas? And she says, Christmas lights in front of my house. I said, okay, we can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I came out later on that afternoon with a saw and, some general tools. I had to cut some shrubs down. Part of the window had the sill had rotted out. So I had to rebuild that. And I had my father-in-law out there with me and I'm like trying to solicit help from him. And he's like, I'm not trying to be rude. And he was a very smart guy. I mean, the guy was brilliant. So I'm not trying to be rude, but this is my kryptonite. I don't understand this. I'm not any good at it.
Sure.
And I don't want to fail because I just feel like this is something that I'm setting myself up for failure. Like, well, you don't have to create it. All you have to do is do exactly what I tell you. Hold this, hand me that. That's all I'm asking from you. But he was terrified of tools or terrified of building something or fixing something. It just wasn't his thing. We all have a thing, and we need to, I guess, try to have a little empathy for those who are not creative or DIY people. Having said that, this is a very DIY business. It just is. If you can't do it, you need a friend who can, and you need to have a couple bucks to pay that guy so he can do it right for you. It is what it is. It's going to cost you more. And, you know, I don't know about you, John, but when I'm in the process of creating for even like a little ceremony system or whatever, I have this concept of what I want to do, and I've kind of sketched it out or whatever. And as I'm putting it together, aha, new ideas pop in your head. You go back to the drawing board and you modify it as you're building it because you notice little things. And by the time you're done, you have something that is better than what you had initially planned to build. Have you ever experienced that?
A little bit, yeah.
I do all the time. I have an idea. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then in the process of doing it, I'm like, ooh, wait a minute. I didn't think of that before. Then I go back and modify it and end up with something much cooler and usually much simpler, much easier, less steps, less materials. Just I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know, I think there are some people who are like that. I'm one where when I'm going to do a task, I like to try to think through at least the flow of it. May not have it down on paper, maybe not have all the aspects to it, but I'll have most of the things done and put into place of where I want to go and where I want to do. And I find that making those decisions ahead of time and then going, and yes, there will be times where you have to modify and change things, but I don't do that. I don't question once I'm into a project as much as I probably should at times, because then you get into it like you do it and it's like,
I tell you when I started doing it more than I ever did is when I was trying to do video tutorials on how to do things. And the reason being is it's occurred to me that the less steps that it takes to complete a task, the easier it is, the more likely the audience is to do it.
True. Very true.
So I would like conceive this really complicated mousetrap. I couldn't think of another way that it would work well other than this crazy, complicated looking Mr. Grinch kind of Dr. Seuss machine thing.
Sure.
So I start building it, and then I'm like, wait a minute. I don't need this arm that goes like this. I can eliminate that if I just move these two pieces together. Okay, I made this simpler. And then as you keep going, you just keep whittling it down and down until you have like 3 pieces and it's off the shelf and it's nothing and there's no drilling, no gluing, no nothing. You just put it together and it works. I had that with that little tablet stand I built for the Pro Bin table. I had this real complicated idea as to how it was going to work. Mm-hmm. And in the end, it was the Bespeco tablet
stand
and a clamp. And that was it. And before it was like I was going to bring in this guy to build things for me, his arms and all this stuff. I didn't need any of it. But once I got into it, I was like, okay, I know how to make this easier. That's just how I work. My DIY stuff isn't always just, I guess, household or car or whatever. It's the DJ thing, and it's taught me a lot. And I think I'm getting better in time. And I'm learning how to paraphrase my creations, making them, more
elaborate,
Mr. Grinch looking. So,
and now step 73.
Cat in the Hat. Was it Cat in the Hat had that complicated credenza thing that did all this?
Oh yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's what stuff starts out looking like when I think about it.
Thing
as I go through it.
Yeah. Well, gang, I think we're going to wrap things up here tonight. We are just about at 10 o'clock straight up.
We had no idea what we were going to talk about when we turned the camera on, and I think we did okay.
Yeah, we went down and we talked about, we went down memory lane just a little bit tonight.
John said, do you have a topic? I'm like, dude, my brain is scrambled eggs. I don't. This was like 3 hours ago.
Yep.
And as I'm doing all of these things that are on my plate tonight, I'm thinking, how to talk about that gig this weekend? Well, maybe I should talk about the DIY stuff a little bit. Maybe, and it all just kind of came together.
Yep,
so, high five. We did it. Okay.
Thank you guys for being with us tonight. Starting next week, Monday night, we're going to be taking off from our live show next Monday night. But then after that, we are going to be back to our regular schedule with our Tuesday shows, Wednesday shows, Thursday shows. So we're going to be back into the fall season with our DJNTV thing. So just want to thank you guys for being with us tonight. And we will be seeing you again. Well, next Tuesday night will be the next time that Brian and I will be back. Good night, everybody.